Hey everybody, we are here having our man cave conversations. Today it is Man Week, it is the takeover. So you saw on the flyer the panelists that we have up here. We have a plethora of experience up in here in the conversation that we're going to have about saving our sons and daughters. I am Pastor Belk. I am the host of the Man Cave Conversation. And again, we've got great panelists up here. We're just going to kick it and have a conversation. Now, we have a audience, so we want you to make sure that you are attentive to what our audience may be asking. But we're taping this so that we can edit it because, when we get up here and start saying some stuff, I don't want it to go live and then it go viral and these people's whole life be changed because of something they said. No, I'm just... So we want to go. We want to start from my right, your left. We're going to do introductions of everyone here, and then we're going to jump right into our questions so that we can go and give these people time to go back home and have dinner at a decent hour. All right. So we're going to start with our own Cliff Watley, and then we're going to move on down.
Good afternoon. My name is Cliff Watley. I'm a former Detroit police officer. I was with Detroit Police for 4 years. I was born and raised on the east side of Detroit. With my stint with Detroit, with Detroit Police, I worked on the streets as a patrol officer. I did traffic enforcement for a few months, and then I worked in the detective unit for about a year. After resigning now, I've been full-time, self-employed, running a banquet hall for about a year now.
I'm Devon Belk. I'm 37 years old. I was born here in Detroit, but my mom moved us to Georgia when we were younger, so I really grew up Southern. And I was that rebellious, knucklehead, don't listen to anybody, child that, grew up and hit that brick wall. I've overcome that. I've been married 8 years. I'm recently separated for about a year, but I got an 8-year-old daughter. I was married for 8 years, and, it's been a climb since getting out, but, now I'm a maintenance tech. I work. I get my life together.
My name is Stephen Booker. I am a high school football coach. I've been coaching for over 23 years. 47. I have 5 sons. I'm a co-owner of Booker Football, where we teach young men, D linemen and O linemen, how to play the game the right way. I'm a member here at this church. Been married over 25 years. Love giving back to the youth.
My name is Joshua Robertson. I am the District 5 manager for the Department of Neighborhoods out of the mayor's office for the city of Detroit. I'm also the CEO and founder of the Sons of Issachar Male Mentoring Program. And I am the young adult pastor at Abundant Life Christian Center in Redford, Michigan. Ages 18 and 35 is what I oversee. 31 years old. I was born and raised Detroit resident, east side of Detroit. And I'm excited to be here with my good friend, Pastor Bill.
I'm Terrence Pope. I am 33 years old. I'm a husband. I'm a father. Well, I'm a husband to a beautiful wife, father to an amazing son. I'm a motivational speaker. I am the founder of Transition 7, a mentor group where I help reach back in the neighborhoods and pull young guys out of the lifestyle that I once lived. I was shot 7 times due to gang affiliation, and 2 years later, I gave my life to Christ, and I dedicate my life to the youth as well.
Amen. Y'all know me. I'm Pastor Belk. Listen, I've been here. I was raised in the hood. I'm 46 years old. I have 3 children. I've been pastoring this church for 8 years, trying to motivate us to take back our neighborhoods. And so outreach is a big thing for me. Been married for 27 years. And so we're just trying to get everything right within the whole life ministry of ministering to a person's not just spirit, but also every aspect of your life. All right, so this is our panel group, and so we're going to jump right into our questions. Now, what I need y'all to do is I need y'all to be patient. After they answer the question that I've already put together for them, then you can raise your hand and ask a question to that question, all right? We want to stay focused because at the end, then we're going to open it up for any question that is still surrounded around saving our sons and daughters, because we don't want to get up here and be talking about, why y'all, bad baby daddies and, all that kind of stuff, getting into stuff that's left field. We are really trying to focus on how to save our sons and daughters. That is the focus on tonight. All right, so I'm going to start with Joshua Roberson. The first question is, are there any development plans or programs that are either in place or in the works that will help bring our community back?
Absolutely, and particularly for the city of Detroit and my district, there are a lot of developments. Actually, District 5 is the largest district in the city of Detroit. We span from Belle Isle. I run from Belle Isle all the way to Dexter, as far north as Hamtramck and Highland Park, as far south as Ford Field. And so I got a lot of land, a lot of areas. And so there are about 30 to 35 different developments, affordable housing, things like that, going on in the city of Detroit, in my particular district, let me say that. A lot of minority, black developers, female developers, women who are doing great things in the city, building affordable housing, things like that. There's also been this push for Detroit at work, so employment. Actually today, this morning, Council President Sheffield did a job fair, and it was felon friendly. And so people who, it wasn't a trap, they wasn't trying to arrest nobody, but they were trying to get people at work and try to do things as best as possible. So there's a lot of things going on. I think a part of my job is to try to connect the people to what's going on, because there's a lack of information being shared. And so there's a lot going on in our city and our neighborhoods.
I think that's detrimental for us to know, because I think that, especially for here in this neighborhood where it seems like it's taking a major decline, when you're looking down the street and see maybe one active house on a block, is there any, development that for this particular area around here? I know you got, District 5 spans so far, but is there anything like for this neighborhood that they're talking about doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So you have Habitat for Humanity, who's trying to buy lots and be able to build homes or refurbish homes. Of course, you have the Neighborhood Lot Program out of Detroit Land Bank, and so they're really pushing for people who own homes to buy the lots next to their homes, or if that person doesn't want that lot, then they allow them to, they turn it into a neighborhood lot. And so someone who lives within 500 feet of that lot can purchase it. They can turn it into a park for kids. They can turn it into a garden, a neighborhood garden, things like that. And so there's a lot of things, particularly in this area, that are going on that, trying to connect pastors and different leaders and organizations to what's really going on, so that they can also have an input and not just be told what's going on, but have an input on what's going on as well.
That's good. That's good. Okay, I'm going to jump right into Mr. Pope, Terrence Pope. Enduring what you've had to endure, what advice would you give to the next generation about living and choosing the street life?
The advice I would give is that, one, you have a choice. You do have a choice. You don't. Oftentimes we say that streets chose me. I didn't choose the streets. That's a lie from the enemy. And the advice that I would give is that you don't have to make those decisions. You don't have to be like your peers, that it's okay to be different. The streets oftentimes overpromise and under-deliver. It's an illusion. They don't tell you about a lot of the things. Always say it's like desolation hide behind gold and glitter. It's desolation hide behind gold and glitter. That they don't tell. It's like the enemy tries to distract us with the money, the fast cars, just all those type of things. But I shared this a few weeks ago. They don't share with you the parents who are crying. They don't share with you the kids who are crying at night because they just got a phone call, or the wife that the husband is dead or got killed, or even the mother. They don't share with you, and I often say this too, that they don't share with you that the people that are crying from the grave telling you to turn back around. That don't make this decision. And so the advice that I would give is that you don't have to choose that life, that if there is a better life, had someone would have told me that and stopped me in my tracks, a father, a mother, even a guy from the neighborhood, it probably could have changed the whole trajectory of my life. And so I want to be that person to tell you that you have a purpose. God do love you. And there is another option, and that option is finding your identity in Christ and moving forward in life. Yeah.
Amen. Do we have any questions for that? That was a phenomenal answer. But do we have any questions for even also the last question that was posed? Okay, we're going to move on. Go over here to Minister Booker. As a coach who works with young boys all the time, what do you think or feel is the biggest problem challenging our boys today?
I feel that the biggest problem that we have with our youth today is home life. When they come to me, they only with me for 2.5 hours a day, 5 days, but they have to go back home to whatever they're dealing with at home. So if there's no leadership, if there's no structure, if there's no positivity in the household, we're lost, because I'm pouring into them. As coaching is more than X's and O's. You have to feed these kids, you have to buy kids clothes, you have to buy kids shoes. I'm not even talking about just football equipment. I'm talking about so they can look decent in school. Sometimes you have to get their hair cut. So it's about, coaching is way more than just the X's and the O's. So if they came to us with no problems, we'd be better coaches. But we have to deal with the problem that comes with them coming to us. So the main problem that I see right now is the home life, the structure of the home, the foundation. Sometimes it's not good.
Okay, a follow-up to that question then, how can we, as the people out here in the audience, people who are raising these children, who are bringing these kids to you, how can we do something better to make your job lighter?
Well, as a man, we as men have to come back to our homes. We have to come back and take care of our kids. Let's say I got like 33 kids on the team, right? Out of 33 kids, I done met 3 guys, 3 dads. The rest of them is moms, right? So as a man, we have to come back and we have to pour into our kids. You gotta want to know who's pouring into your child, right? So what if I was a crooked guy and I'm pouring into your child crooked, right? But you don't know because you're not there. So as a man, we need to come back as men, and come back into our homes. And if we can't stay with the mamas, then we still have to find out how to co-parent and co-parent the right way. Being in your child's life, it's very, very, very important for a man to be in his son's life, and very important for him to be in his daughter's life. So that's what we got to do. We have to step back up, put our pants on, and be men.
All right, that was a good. Any questions? Any questions? Okay, so I'm gonna go to Divine. What was the major part of your recovery from being incarcerated for 8 years?
Well, just a little background. I was incarcerated when I was 17, and I got out when I was 25. And just getting back into the swing of things and being in my own control. Like when you're in a prison aspect, they control every aspect of your life. So it was kind of a sensory overload for me because I had all the choices in front of me, you know what I'm saying? And just so happened I had a good support system, and they helped me make the right choices after that, but it was really hard having that availability of choice. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a struggle. Like, when I first came home, I had the leg monitor on and had to be home at certain times, and it was people that was genuinely glad to see me being home, but they was on the wrong path. You know, so they was, man, come over here, let's do this, you out. And I got the choice and the freedom to do that. And it you know, without the support system, it would have been harder to make the right choices and steer myself on the right path. But that was really one of the biggest things I had to learn, how to just deal with, how to block certain things out, how to block everything out and focus on what I needed to do. You know, it was no structure, and I had to create that structure in myself.
That's a good answer. So, you got your hand raised? Okay, somebody get him the mic. So with what you're saying, as far as, so like a lot of our brothers are incarcerated. They're caught up in the system. You know, they have to live. They talking about this street life, like Terrence said. You know, you either get caught up in some type of issue with being shot or going to jail or, you know, the grave, or you got some type of reform you can do. So what helped you, like, while you were in there, have hope to get out of there?
Well, that was, like, I had to strengthen my mind to the point where I've seen just that loss of freedom take people's sanity. So without that hope, that was like my last rope. Like, if everything else failed, I couldn't let go of that hope, because I knew, yes, it seemed like forever, a 12-year sentence, but I knew I wouldn't be there forever. And I knew I wanted to come home healthy. You know, I wanted to come home with the same mind, you know, and I wanted it. So that hope kept me active. I read thousands and thousands of books, and like, that's why it's hard for me to watch TV now, because I read so many books, but I had to keep active. I played chess and played dominoes and spades, and I worked out and played basketball, and, you know, just because of that hope, you know, that was like the pillar. That's the like, if all else failed, I had to lean on that, or I would just fall completely in and be lost. So, you know, I kept myself active to try to take my mind away from my current situation, and I was able to do that because of that hope.
That's good. Okay, we had a question.
Devon, you spoke about being incarcerated, and a lot of times we know in the rap music and things of that nature, kids hear about, you know, whatever, and some of them are willing to go to jail. Just so we can help the kids understand that this is nothing to play with, within reason, obviously, where we're at, could you give something that a kid could hear and say, you know what, I don't think I want to go? Because we hear a lot of stories on the internet, but seeing that we have somebody in person that really, really actually went through that life, could you give them something that would make them say, you know what, I don't think I want to go to jail?
Well, I know it's a lot of violence and stuff in there, and that's like the kind of cliche answer, but I'm gonna keep it real. You wanna go outside. For 8 years straight, I never went outside at night. I go outside at night every day today because of that. Like, I don't care. When it get dark, I'm stepping outside for at least 5-10 minutes every night. That's my personal little reminder of my own freedom, but you never outside at night. And you never see a refrigerator. For real, you never see a refrigerator. Everything you own is in a box on the wall. So that's another thing I do every day. I just open my refrigerator and look at it, you know, because it reminds me of my freedom. So it's small things like that you don't realize until they're gone. But to never go outside at night for 8 years, that was one of the roughest things. Like, at night, that's when all the security heightens, everything tightens up at night, and you never outside at night. So, you know, that freedom is something that I encourage all young people, men, boys, girls, just everybody. You know, if you're thinking about that, your freedom it's not worth it. Like I committed a robbery, and it was the consequences to the come up was nowhere near worth it at all. So, you know, just that freedom, don't take that for granted. You know what I'm saying?
All right, we got more questions?
Yeah, another question. It's kind of for Terrence and Devon. Maybe they can piggyback, but it's sort of the same. Just with the images that our young men and women have with, like, I take a bid. Like, that's like good. That's like you get more street credit. Or like, I take a bullet. I mean, we have females here now to talk about, like, getting shot. And, you know, like, they don't know the real trauma, like, behind those things. Can you say something kind of in the same aspect of, like, it's not easy, you know, like having to go through that stuff, and like where the kids think it's like another stripe on their belt to like being shot or take a bid for something like that?
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy thing. I was one of those guys who, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the guy Blade, I know y'all may be, but Blade Icewood, so that was my mindset too, that I'm gonna go out like Blade Icewood, or I'll take a bullet, because that's what the media and the rappers is feeding us, is that, you know, we go to prison, it's cool. Or you get shot, it's cool, but everybody that gets shot don't make it, you know. Everybody that go to prison don't come home, you know. So they very, very short-minded in the thinking. Like for me, you know, I thought that I was gonna be like Nino Brown with my automatic and my cigarette when I was going out, but I was crying, you know, begging God, like, please don't take my life, you know. Couldn't even believe that I was actually out there dying. Actually died twice that night. And so I went from gangster Rico to baby Ryan, you know, real quick, you know, like I was a baby out there. And so, you want to say something?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. I was going to let you. And just to add to that, like, I've been in fights for my life.
Yeah.
Like, dudes really trying to hurt me. Like, you know, it's a constant state of tension. Like, you don't want to live in that tension. Like, I got broke nose and stab wounds here and there. You never relaxed.
Yes.
Like, you tight wound the whole time. Like, you always on your back. Like, you know, even little stuff now, like, I sit in corners of rooms because I like to be able to see everything. And that just come from being in such that hard environment.
Yes.
Like, it's not easy at all.
Yeah, and for me, you're right. Like, I don't sit any restaurant I go into, my back is never. I'm the same way. Can't even hear a firework without getting ready to fall on the ground. You know, but it's a lot of trauma that comes behind that. I don't even like going to certain gas stations. You know, it's still a fear that comes behind that. I mean, even for me being in a wheelchair, you know, it's some deep stuff to that too. You know, you just think that you see these guys get shot, they're in wheelchairs, and you think that is easy, but even after being suicidal, depressed, trying to get back to a normal lifestyle, and you know, it's a lot that comes with it. It's not as easy as they try to make it to being glorified. And I'm pretty sure you know, Devon, even in prison, a lot of guys who went in, or that was out, that had a name, but went in, they were scared for their life, you know, and so.
All right, Mr. Wilker, you want to comment?
Yeah, I was a comment because I did 8 years working in a youth home where I was a youth specialist, right? And the comment was that she said that they come in and say they'll take a bid or they'll take a bullet. Now, let's be real. It's some that will. They don't mind doing a bid. But it all started because the foundation of his house wasn't good, so he was doing better inside than he was doing outside, right? So then you have some that will take a bullet, right, because they don't have no other way of living life, right? But then most of them is just mouth. When them doors slam, when you're in that youth home and them doors slam, they begin to cry. And I mean, literally, the toughest guys that you think is in the youth home, when you close them doors on them and that door slam, they begin to cry. They begin to open up. This ain't really the life that they want to live. This is not the way that they wanted to go. But some of them feel like they didn't have a choice. So a lot of it, to your question, just be mouth. Just be mouth. They don't really want that bid. They don't really want that bullet, right? It's just something to say. It's just something to say.
I think it was pretty interesting that Terrence was talking about, how the rap music kind of push you and hype you up and make you think that, hey, this is the life I'm supposed to live, you know what I mean? And we try to act like there isn't a major influence on the music. But I ain't never go and ready to ride down on nobody without some inspirational music. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't never like was sitting there like, hey, y'all, let's get in the car. Let's get the guns. Let's go ride on them. And to gospel music. You know what I'm saying? Like, you wasn't listening to smooth jazz. You know what I mean? It was, you had this music that influenced you. And like, it really is. And when you talk about it from a spiritual standpoint, the enemy was the angel of music. You know what I mean? And so he knows how to use that to influence us. And I always teach and preach about this, and I didn't want to turn this into this type of session, but, just talking about the realness of what you let in your spirit. You know what I mean? And so sometimes it influences you to do things that I remember just hating the police for no reason. You know what I mean? It was just the song, you know what I mean? Ice Cube and them came out with the song. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And I remember one time running from the police, and I was like, man, what am I running for? I'm clean. Like, I'm literally clean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have nothing, no dirt on me, no nothing. I'm running with my boys just immediately, you know what I mean? The amount of weed I had on me they probably would have laughed at me. You know what I mean? I got a nickel bag of weed on me, and I'm running like I got an ounce. You know what I mean? Like, they don't even come in nickels. You know what I'm saying? So, he said they don't even come in nickels no more. Inflation, anyway. But you know what I mean? I just, I think about that. You have to be careful when we're talking about saving our sons and daughters about, I teach my kids, I don't want them to be monks. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to ostracize them from the world, but what I tell them to do is, hey, man, get some balance. Put some gospel in there. Like, try to listen to gospel as your inspiration in the first thing in the morning before you go to listening to all that stuff. You know what I mean? Because you're not going to stop them from listening to that stuff. Even on social media, it's an impossible task to tell them, oh, just listen to gospel and that's it. You know what I mean? It's just unrealistic. So I'm trying to teach them to have real life practices. All right, so I know Cliff like, hey, man, y'all ain't asked me nothing.
Can I add to your point real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
So ironically, over the course of the past couple months, I actually was talking about the influence of hip hop on the youth with my wife a lot. And this year, for the most part, I haven't really been listening to hip hop like that for that reason. But I think we minimize how big of a deal it is. And a lot of people, when they talk about the influence of hip hop, the hip hop community on the youth, it's in a way to where they're like, okay, well, I listened to this song, and so I did it. But I think it's a lot deeper. And for instance, for me, when I was in high school, when I woke up every morning on the bus on the way to school, I had headphones in, and I was listening to gangster music. Luckily, and it's still bad, but luckily for me at that time, it was Jeezy or Jay-Z, and they glorified, dressing nice and selling drugs. And I think one of the things that's even worse for the kids now is that almost all of the gangster rap is murder music now. It's not glorifying hustling no more. It's glorifying 100-round clips and killing ops, spinning the block over and over again. So they wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning every day and listen to murder music. It's a form of meditation. And then we wonder why they get desensitized to just violence. And it's just been a constant uptick in homicides and violent crimes in kids from 15 to age 20. And they're heavily influenced by that. I think that's one of the leading causes, if I'm honest.
Wow. So while we here with you being an ex-DPD, like what are some of the things that you've seen out on the street that, kind of frightens you about, this new generation? Like, what has changed and you just feel like, man, I never thought it would get to this point? Because, if you sit down and talk to an officer, we got another officer in the audience, But if you sit down and talk to officers and some of the stuff that they say and the things that they see, I approached one and was like, hey man, that's kind of, you're a hypocrite when you tell me I'm gonna get a ticket for not wearing a seatbelt and you don't wear a seatbelt. He was like, man, you don't understand, in certain neighborhoods, they just start gunning on us. It's a matter of life or death for us. You know what I mean? Like, we have to jump out the car because sometimes they'll just spray up a car. And I was like, man, I didn't think it was that deep. And I talked to another cop that was like, hey, man, y'all don't understand. Like, we have something to live for. We're just trying to perform a job. We can go home to our families, where a lot of times these boys know that when they see us, it's going to be, my freedom being taken away from me. So either kill a cop or go back to where I said I'd never go again. So what are some of the things that you've seen as a DPD officer that, like, alarms you?
As far as the youth goes, I think the scariest thing is just a complete lack of authority. There's no respect for, and not just for law enforcement, but when you get calls to certain households and you just listen to how the kids talk to their parents or their grandma, and it's just it's a sad thing to see, because it's really nothing not to my knowledge, that you can do if you have someone that has no regard for authority at all. And it probably goes back to what he was saying about the fathers not being in the homes. There's no, if I'm 16 years old and I never had to answer to a man, who are you? Now that you're here and you're telling me what to do, what would I answer you for?
Wow. I have a question for you. As like a ex-police officer, or in that aspect, like me, I had a healthy fear of anything police for a long time. Like, if police came in, I was the first one to slide out the door. Like, I'm gone. So trying to connect with the youth, how do you, off the rip, try to dispel that fear? Like bro was mentioning, like, people run from police just because of such certain instances, and that's in the hood. And growing up on that side of, the law, it's like natural, like, no, we don't mess with the police. So how do you try to dispel that in order to reach the youth? How do you break that shell?
I think it is just showing that you're human, I very rarely ever had to get in, like, any altercations as a cop just by talking to people, especially if you're from the environment. Like, if I'm able to relate to you and talk like you and understand all the slang and the words you're using and use them back, then I think certain levels of comfort comes from that. And you'll hear people talk about it often, like just wanting more police in the environments that come from the environment. And I think that's a big deal. And ironically, in my case specifically, I hated the police growing up. So I was one of 3 guys in 2 generations of my family that wasn't a felon. And my reason for, I guess, crossing the fence was because I seen that for 2 generations, all right, y'all all ended up dead or in jail, man. So that's not working out. And I think it just, we got to make being a police officer more acceptable in our community, If people in the community are able to take that approach of, instead of hating the police, but you know what, let me go be the police the way it should be done, then things could probably get better faster.
All right, that's really good, because I think that a key thing that you talked about was the fact that you were from the neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? And I think what we're starting to see is that a different culture of cadets coming through DPD. And so when you have situations where there's a draw first, type of mentality when it comes to, the citizens and the authority, I think one of the biggest problems is that, they associate anyone rocking a hoodie, and all black. Like, I got on all black today. sometimes I think other cultures look at that as threatening. You know what I mean? We had the whole, what was the young boy who got killed for the hoodie? Trayvon Martin. You know what I mean? So that you have situations like that where, they was like he was soft as tissue. He wasn't really a thug type of guy. But those type of people who automatically associate, our attire, and we can't tell our kids that you can't wear a hoodie. You know what I mean? Like you can't tell our kids to walk around in suit jackets all day so that the people who don't understand them don't fear them, but they govern them. You know what I mean? So I think one of the biggest things is, do we need to recruit more people from within our neighborhood, or because it's so low, how do we solve that as well? And I want to talk to you and Josh about that because he's in politics. They're talking about this big old thing about, defunding the police. Do you think that's something positive? And statistics show that there are some places that have not been policed that they're trying this, and the crime is going down. So before we get to that, I think we got a question from the audience.
This question is for Cliff. Being an ex-DPD officer, do you think that part of the disconnect comes from lack of training or lack of knowledge of what the laws are?
Do you mean disconnect as far as
between law enforcement and communities? Like, I'll give you an example. I seen a law enforcement officer search a car that he was pulling the guy over just for a broken taillight. He didn't smell any paraphernalia. He didn't see any firearms or anything in the car. He just ripped the guys out the car for no reason.
So for that example you gave, I think a lot of times the public in general make assumptions about what police are doing and don't know all the facts. And I'm saying this from a personal standpoint because I've encountered many situations where people come up, hey, they wasn't doing nothing. Why you harassing them? Like, little do you know, he has 2 homicide warrants. But you as someone that just walked up on the situation, you don't know that. Or in the law, it's never just black and white. It's never just if someone does this, you do that. Everything kind of has a clause to it. So even though I may have only did a traffic stop for a tail light initially, once I realized you don't have insurance, I'm supposed to tow this vehicle. But before I could tow any vehicle, I have to search it. So simple things could turn into a lot more in-depth procedures. But from the public's perception, it may not seem that way. It may seem like I'm just bothering someone. And sometimes that is the case, but in a lot of other times that isn't necessarily the case. And the law isn't just as simple as it may come off to the general public.
Okay, so more on the line of what I'm saying is say I'm physically present and I know a law enforcement officer isn't supposed to be doing something, would that be therefore because of the lack of training or the lack of knowledge of the law?
I don't know. I mean, some people do have power trips, man. And it's not a cool thing that happens. It happens. I've seen it a couple of times in my career. So I mean, I couldn't really make a blanket statement on this specific situation. But it goes back to what I'm saying. In certain cases, something that's almost exactly like what you experienced could have been completely within the law. And then in other situations, it may just be a power-hungry cop trying to, I don't know, prove himself or something. Does that make sense?
We have someone else grabbing the mic that also is a officer. Can you give your background?
Yep, my name is Terrence Moore. I've been in cop for 7 years, 5 years in Saginaw. This year is murder capital of Michigan. Piggybacking on what he said, a lot of people, social media is huge, and there's a lot of outrage without without proper knowledge, right? You say you tell like he searched the car. What's the 5 searchless work criteria, right? Like, who can name them? Right, okay. We all have driver's licenses, right? When you go to Secretary of State, you sign on your driver's license, you say you understand the rules and regulations of the road, right? Also, the Constitution, Bill of Rights. If you don't know that, whose fault is that, right? And if it is an illegal search, guess what? Let them do what they got to do. Guess what? It's a big payday for you. It's a violation of your Fourth Amendment. Any attorney will hop on that in a heartbeat, and now you're just a rich man, right? That cop's fired, suspended, and you're a rich man. Pivoting to my question is, and I seen it. I worked in youth detention, like Minister Booker. I worked in the jail while I was in college and grad school. Now I'm a cop. Like you guys said, when the doors close, you see the hardest criminals. They'll cry to you. You know, like I was a CEO, but you know, at the end of the day, when I walk down that block, you know, they'll tell me everything. I'm not saying like they're snitching or anything, but like personal, why they're there and all that type of stuff. Most of them can't read and write. I'll read their letters to them, and that's the foundation of all the problems. I would say it's education. But my question is, from what I see, is the glorification of drugs. And it does stem from the music and hip-hop toxic culture. I like hip-hop, but it's the toxic culture of hip-hop on a different aspect of that, like Percocets, lean. You know, a lot of people I've arrested or incarcerated, they'll tell you, I don't know, I was on lean. If you know anything about lean, yeah, it's cool in a music video, but it's liquid heroin. That's literally what it is. Or they're popping Percocets. And I saw some videos today that came to my feed, and it was, you know, prompted up Percocets. That's nothing but opiate. You know what I mean? It's the same as heroin. Also the marijuana. You know, it's not the marijuana of our parents, you know, or, you know, my uncle had a plant in his house. That's different. But when you start like street marijuana, it's glistening, right? It's sparkling. That ain't normal, right? And I see kids strung out, like literally going to the hospital all day, whether they're in school, middle school. We're taking them to the hospital because they're overdosing on edibles. So my question is, as far as like the toxic culture of drug abuse, do you guys see that, or like how it leads to something else as far as, you know, yep, or Vaughn?
So I was one of those. So I was one of those guys who was influenced by the media, and I'm telling you, and it has a lot to do with your surroundings. So I started off saying I would never smoke cigarettes. Then I started smoking cigarettes. You know, then the guys around me, they upped the drug. I said I would never do ecstasy. I started doing ecstasy. I started doing lean. Started doing Xanax. So when I was shot, I was off about 4 ecstasy pills, right? And so I have seen how that can happen, being influenced by the media, then being influenced by the guys in the neighborhood, your peers, and so yeah, it's definitely. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I was like, man, now the guys in my neighborhood is doing they snorting it now, and some of them are doing shooting needles. They off crack. So you see the evolution of it. You know, you see the evolution. Like that was 20. What was that? I gave my life to God almost 12 years ago now. But just to see how far my friends that's snorting and doing drugs now, and what it is doing to them mentally, you know, barely can have full conversations or slurring. You know, even the media is the guys. Most of the rappers now, they barely know how to articulate themselves. And kids who was raised to articulate themselves are dumbing themselves down now to talk like these rappers. I know a guy now who is very articulate. Mom is very articulate. I mean, grammatical. And when he talks to her, he's his grammar is on point. But when he talks to me, it's like, you know, he's talking like the rapper Kodak Black, you know. And I can identify it quickly. And so back to the point, yes, I see the evolution of it. I do think that media, our peers, and has a lot to do with it. And I do think it's a big destruction in the community now that they think that they're just having fun. I started off having fun, and before I knew it, I was addicted to it, and it became part of me, and I couldn't let it go. It had me, so yeah.
And I think when we're talking about in terms of saving our sons and daughters, I could look at my life. You know, I went down that path somewhat, you know, but no matter what, I still had a foundation in God. And so, like, I don't know if we see the bigger picture. Like, we're pulling back and looking at the hip hop culture, but then we also got to look at the fact that that same culture is demonizing church. So it's like the place where you would get some stability, some type of help in terms of the moral compass. You know what I mean? Like, there were certain things that we just wouldn't do, you know, like as far as, you know, me and my friends would cuss, and I was like, hey, man, we in front of a church. You know what I mean? Hey, or we'll be on the bus, and we just going at it, and then we'll see an elderly person, and like, hey, man, you know, hey, we got an elderly person. Like, there was limits there because there was some type of balance with, you know, having that introduction to God. Because let's be real, like, we can't, like, pull them out of this environment. You know what I mean? It's everywhere. Even if you try to leave them at home, they got social media, so when they're in the bathroom, if you try to take it away from them, they're just gonna find another way to get to it. So what do you do in terms of, like, helping them balance with that? That's why we try to bring them to, you know, children's church, to give them a element where they can learn on a level and get some type of God in their life. So, like, it's detrimental that you give them some God. I don't even care if you read the Bible to them at home and don't come to church, but give them some type of God and some stability. I always say the best thing my mother could have did was introduce me to Jesus Christ. And when she said it was like this age of accountability. When I was like 12, she's like, yeah, you belong to God now. You know, like, whoa, wait, what do you mean? Like, she's like, God gonna take care of you. Just, your relationship with him is now started. I did my part. And I'm like, man, I'm 12. You know what I mean? Like what do you mean? I got to talk to this higher being. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on? But I start seeing the accountability, and it was like this spiritual, like, restraint on me. Like, I wouldn't go so far. You know what I mean? Like, I was around two guys, and my brother will tell you, we was thick as thieves, as we used to say, and one got shot in the head 5 times, and the other one went to jail for murder. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, this got to be a call from God for me not to either be with him or retaliate. You know, when his mother telling me, I know who killed him, and here's the gun, go retaliate. Or I could have been with him when he was robbing somebody and ended up killing somebody. So it's just, you know, that God element is how we save our sons and daughters. Okay, Minister Booker had a comment.
So, I ain't gonna say it the right way, but it says train up a child, right, in the way it should go. I believe that's more than just Bible, okay? In the streets, are you teaching your child, if he's listening to the rap music, are you going back and you correcting the music? You know what I'm saying? Every day, I have my 12-year-old granddaughter at the house, and every day I have to pour into her that homosexuality is not, that's being with girls is not where it's at. You know, and I can't not let her watch TV. I mean, it's on commercials. It's on every channel. It's on cartoons now. So I can't just be like, okay, you can't watch TV no more. You know, so I have to pour back into her the right way. Are we pouring into our kids about how to treat a cop? You know what I'm saying? When a cop pull you over, do you know what you're supposed to do? So it's still the foundation of home. Are you showing a kid that, I remember the commercial when we was younger, this is your brain on drugs, and they crack the egg and put it in the frying pan, right? Are we showing them that part of the problem? Are we showing them what it feels like, or we can't say what it feels like, but are we showing them pictures of someone being shot? This is what happens when you do wrong and you up under the influence. Are we pouring into them? At home is the most time that they're down and you can pour into a child is when they're at home. Sometimes you got to take that internet from them. You know, you got to take that phone. You got to make them read. You got to make them do different stuff. So it's still on the parents. If we're not doing what we're supposed to do at home, as far as the man and the woman, we can't save our kids because they're going to be lost because they're going to feed into what the world wants them to eat. So are we feeding our kids the right things at home? And if you're not at home, you need to get home because it's very important because home is where it starts at. I'm a firm believer that at the beginning of a child's life, their parent has to be there. And it has to be poured into daily. It has to be corrected daily because they go against so much stuff out in this world. And if you come home, they come home and you say nothing, then what happens? The next day they go right back into it. So I always wanted my kids to always be like, not what Jesus doing, but what would my daddy do? And what's the consequences that I'm gonna feel behind this before I do this? Because they know from right from wrong. Now when they got grown, that was on their own. But are we feeding our kids the right thing? That's my whole thing. It's to save our sons and daughters, we have to feed them the right thing at home.
We got a question here.
I just got a comment behind that. My question is, but when the parents are just as crazy as the kids, how do we deal with that? Because I went to my daughter's school because she got into it with a young lady, and when the parents came in, and I'm like, this the mother and the father? So even the principal and everybody, we still didn't get nothing resolved. That's what I'm trying to say, because I know it starts at home, but a lot of the parents, some of them haven't been taught, you know. Because I know I'm 47, so I knew right from wrong, but I still went my ways too. But like Pastor was saying, I still knew about God, and I still had morals. So I wouldn't want to say, you know, because I ran with them, but I didn't. But my thing is though, is how do we get to the parents to help their kids? Because some of the parents, they don't know themselves because they haven't been raised. That's my question.
We're dealing with the youth that we deal with. That's what I said. The coaching is more than just X's and O's, right? Because sometimes you go home and you got that crazy parent that's on the same level or help you get on a level that you shouldn't be on, right? You come to the game and not the kids fighting, but the parents fighting. You know what I'm saying? So stuff like that. So that's when we have to have mentors. You know what I'm saying? So you see that kid and you see his life at home, he can't get nothing out of home. Right, that's when you have to go that extra mile and mentor him, right, or her, and you have to help them out, and you have to let them know what you're seeing at home is not right. That's not right. You know what I'm saying? What your mom and them doing in the stands is not right. You know, what they're telling you and what they're allowing you to do is not right. But I'm gonna tell you something. If you start a foundation, you start to communicate with one kid, and you start teaching him the right way, it begins to flow. Kids want to be taught right. Don't let nobody trick you saying they don't. In the youth home, they love me to death because I was teaching them right. You know, it wasn't no, I'm going to give you a bag of chips if you chill out. No, it's not that, bro. You're going to chill out because it's the right thing to do. You know what I'm saying? So they respect you for that. But if you come in there like, hey, man, today I'm going to give you a bag of chips and you be good on my shift. You know, no. So they want structure. You know what I'm saying? And if they can't get it at home, then it's time for us to step up and be mentors and help them out. If not, in 10 years, where we going to be at?
I think also the question Dre was talking about, too, is not just the kids, but the parents. You know what I mean? And I think that, you know, we always say each one can reach one. You know what I mean? And we have muted the conversation about God at home. You know what I mean? Like, we've muted it around our friends and family. Like, we used to have conversations when I was growing up about what was right and what was wrong, even in just normal conversations, when we just kicking it at the table and we got drinks on the table and everything, like we still talked about what was right and what was wrong, and scenarios like, hey, I took my daughter to school and this teacher, like, and you still had grandparents that could still say something and say, hey man, you was out of line. But you don't have that no more because, we don't respect authority, period. It's no authority, period. And then when you're incarcerated or in a home, like in a group home, they come down on you full force of authority. So if you don't teach them at home, if you don't discipline them at home, if you don't tell them no and tell them what it's like to not get your way everywhere you go, they're gonna get it in a facility like that. You know what I mean? Or out in the streets. It's you either got to teach it at home or they're gonna learn it on the streets. And I'd rather whoop my kids at home than for my kids to get whooped in the streets or in the prison. You know what I'm saying? I just would. There's some type of discipline that needs to go forth. And we're straying away. The world is straying away from authority, period. That's what they're talking about. Defunding the police, that's authority. Talking about church, that's structure and authority. You know what I mean? Everything that's about authority, we're trying to wipe out. I think you had something you want to say?
Yeah, just to add to Pastor Belk, my spiritual father, Bishop Charles Middleton Sr., says it like this: relationship precedes ministry. And so, unfortunately, we're talking about this authority aspect, but a lot of these parents don't even have a relationship with their children. You don't even spend any time with your kid. You don't know your child. You don't know their likes, their dislikes, emotional temperance. You don't know anything. And so, same thing with mentorship. I'm not going to listen to you about anything if I haven't built a relationship with you first. And so if I don't trust you, if I don't see your life, the example precedes the message as well. And so like Minister Booker was talking about the way parents are acting, a lot of times these parents are in their 20s, because a lot of times the grandparents are in their 40s. You know what I'm saying? So there's a younger generation now, and so now you're expecting people who were once 40 and they got elementary and middle school students. Now they're 25, and they had a kid at 15. My mother had me at 15, and it was a miracle. The statistic is after you have that one child, you're gonna have another one. And then now you're trying to put them off, and everybody has different support systems. Young ladies or gentlemen, they have different support systems. So either you got that grandma that you can pass your kid off on and you still trying to party, or, you got an aunt or somebody else. So so many different factors that we have to put into place. But I think the main thing, Pastor Belk, is exposure. We're talking about the home, right? But what about getting your children into some type of program, exposing them to robotics, exposing them to mathematics, STEM or STEAM or something like that? Instead of just worrying about taking stuff out of their hand, let's put something in their hand. A lot of these, the workforce or the work base is not trained. They don't know anything, computers or things like that. So let's try to turn their attention to something else. And a lot of times your kids, you can see them, even as a little baby, you can see them doing something. And they might mess with cooking. They might like the food or something. Push your child in that direction. Expose them to something so that they can try it and see if they like it. And you never know, it could become a career. So exposure is the big thing.
Yes, that's a good point because when we moved from here to Georgia, the start of a lot of my rebellion was boredom. I started smoking weed because I was bored. I started smoking cigarettes because I was bored. We lived way out in the woods. It was, you know what I'm saying? And it started feeling closed in. And then those influences are easily accepted when there's nothing else to do. So that's a real good point. I feel like if I, would have been into more things, but me, I guess I was a little different because I was rebellious. I had the support system and good grades in school. Is just, you couldn't tell me nothing. So I hit my brick wall, you know what I'm saying? And I was blessed enough to survive it. Just yesterday I just got my license back, and that's been 21 years since I caught my first charge that I got a clear name. I'm 37 now. I caught my first charge at 16, and I just cleared it up at 37. So I think that's a very important point because boredom and idleness led to me trying a lot of stuff that I probably wouldn't be, vices that I still have today. You know what I'm saying? That I started when I was 12, 13 because I was bored. I started smoking cigarettes when I was 12 because I was bored. And I smoke a pack a day today. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, I think that that's very important. Like we need to find ways to keep them from being idle and bored.
Our mother used to always say, idle mind is the devil's workshop. I think she got that from my grandmother, but my mother used to always say that, like, you got to give, that idle time, and we as men know that idle time get us in trouble all the time. So just, finding something to do and giving the kids something to do, I think is crucial.
So you said find somewhere for them to go and push them into the avenue that they want to be on, right? So how do like in this neighborhood, how would a parent find that? It ain't like it's coming in the mailbox. This is the opportunity that you have to push your kids. So how do they find what they need to find?
For me, so that's what I'm doing now in my group. I love that you just said that exposure is key. Had most of us grown up with the exposure, it could have changed the trajectory of our lives. Neighborhood mechanics, taking them up to that's going to be our first trip is to a neighborhood mechanic. He's going to teach somewhere where they're cooking, or maybe to a suit shop, teach them how to tie a tie, or certain things like that. And so, but what I've learned, we have to stop being passive with parents, and give them the hardcore truth. So what I've learned is these parents, to your point, what they would do is they would raise their children, I call it parental discretion. And they let them do what they want to do, expose them to everything, and then as they grow and they spiral out, they bring them to you and say, fix them, And what happens is when the parents come to me and I get an idea of the parent, I'm asking the parent questions. What's your relationship like? Because I want to know one of your child. Then I want to know what your relationship is like. And then I tell you, hey, while he's in group, you go to therapy. We have to stop being passive, because we have to also address that a lot of these parents have not been taught how to be parents, and so I always say it's kind of hard to teach an old dog new tricks, so we're trying to unwire things and just being honest with the parents, like, hey, maybe you need to go seek out some counseling as well and kind of untangle some things in your life. And so that's the hard conversations I have to have with the parents. And by the time I do it in love and with grace, and by the time we're done talking, she like, what, as he's coming to you doing these groups, I'll be seeking out a therapist, or my wife is the therapist, so I send it to my wife, but, yeah, she's a counselor, so hey, go ahead over there, So we killing two birds in one stone, yeah.
So in other words, what you're trying to say, what you're saying is the toxicity of the parents poison the children.
Yes. Or if you said you raise a child the way he should go, he'll never part from the way. So it's not necessarily always the parents, but where we fell at, it's like you said, taking God out the house. So once you take God out the house, then that's where the problem comes, because you can raise your child the best way that you can. Be the greatest mother, can be a pastor in the household, get up, pray 10 times, 12 times a day, and your child still go out here and do what he wants to do. But the thing is that the word is true, that you raise a child the way he should go, he won't depart from the ways. The thing is while that child is wandering, he's still pondering. And that's that guard that you had. Oh, man, I'm not cussing in front of the church. Me too. Or you see a pastor or a man of God, you like, it's a respect thing. Or you see older people, that's where that guard comes from. It comes from home because you've been taught, and I had a guard over my life. Some things I just would not do. Like, I'm not cussing in front of this old lady, or still to this day, never cussed in front of an adult in my life. Yeah.
So I don't want to take up all of y'all time. We're over our time, but this conversation is getting so good that, I'm willing to, if with your permission, I'm willing to go maybe 15 more minutes. Is that okay with y'all? Or do we need to get out of here? Is that okay with y'all? All right, we good? Okay, so any other questions from the audience? Yes, we got one right here. Somebody give it a mic. Right here, Mike Booker, right there.
So my question is, as a high school football coach, mentoring men, young men, and then I also worked in the juvenile facility. How do you deal with a parent that tells you to deal with their kid because they listen to you more than they listen to them?
As a 10-year varsity coach, especially coaching against you, Book, I can empathize with that. I would say this, unfortunately, man, this past season, coaching at E-Course, I had a young man that lived all the way out in Belleville. And as coaches, we had to take him home. His mother would not come bring him. She wouldn't do nothing. And so we were taking him home, and I would use that time, that 30-minute drive, whatever, to minister to him, to talk to him. And unfortunately, as soon as the season was over, his mother died. And literally like the day before Christmas or something like that. And so, I still have a relationship with him to this day, but I think that we have to the Bible talks about bearing the infirmities of others or the reproach of others. Sometimes you have to do that. The church for me, I'm single mother, raised by a single mother. The church for me, men in the church, deacons, elders, just men, they provided a supplement for me. One deacon taught me how to tie my shoes. One deacon taught me how to tie a tie. One elder bought me my first shoe signing kit. And he said, start a business, shine all the men's shoes in the church, And so there were different men that influenced me, and I took a little bit from everybody, and it supplemented for not having that natural father. And so, Book, you would be that supplement. You have that authority, and if the Lord gives you the grace and the enabling power to be influential to these young men, you got to embrace it, in whatever capacity you can. And I think it's a precious opportunity to be a minister to a young man or a young woman. It's to be able to pour yourself. That's discipleship, and sometimes discipleship costs something. It may cost you taking them to lunch, taking them to breakfast, taking them to and from practice every day. But to be a disciple, to be an authorized, visible representative in the earth of Jesus Christ is our calling. And sometimes it's laborious, sometimes it takes a lot, but I think that's what we're called to do, and we have to embrace it in this season.
All right, I think that was a fantastic answer. So I'm going to spice it up a little bit. Let's talk about something. All right, y'all ready? Y'all ready? So we talked about, the home, and we talking about a broken home. We talking about, how, both parties are necessary to help raise your children. What do we do in a situation where it seemed like, the mother don't want the men in their lives? Like what, like there's some who sabotage the relationship just so that they can make it more comfortable for the next man. I don't want you having a divide with, your baby daddy. I want to make sure that it's comfortable. What do you do? What do you tell these men who are fighting to be in their children's lives because they don't want them to be a statistic? They don't want them to, hit the streets, and they don't want them to live that life. They know that they are detrimental in their child's life, but the mother is the main barrier in between that. What do y'all say? Let's go.
You can go. Yeah,
Sure.
And I guess I don't have an extreme level of empathy for that. I feel like generations ago, that's a very valid excuse for a father that's trying to be in his kid's life. Now, it's no excuse. if she's making it hard, take her to court. It's literally that simple. You can't say I'm doing everything I want to, everything I can to be in my kid's life, and she's not letting me. She's not the ultimate decision maker. Go file some paperwork, same way she would on you if the shoe was on the other foot, and get legal partial custody of your kid. It's simple, unless you live a lifestyle to where kids aren't safe around you.
So for me, that's my life. That's my story. Thank God my son went to sleep over there. He's knocked out, but that was my story to where she kept me from my son. I didn't see my son for a whole year, and I knew the lifestyle that I lived. I knew what I went through, and I didn't want my son to be a statistic to that. So I did exactly what you said to do, that if a man wants his son, he can fight for his son. There's no excuse. And maybe a lot of guys may be ignorant to it, and I don't mean that in a harsh way, just not knowledgeable that they can go down there and do that. I have full custody of my son right now because I did it the right way, And so to any man out there, I would say that do it the legal way. You don't have to go through all that fighting and arguing. I shut up for a whole year, with the help of the Holy Spirit and my wife. She like, you better not say it, don't say nothing. And I'm like, she like, don't even give her that advantage. And I shut up for a whole year, and I was just going through the courts, and they ended up ruling in my favor. And so that it is possible to get 50-50 custody, or like in my case, full custody. There's really no excuse, and if you don't have that knowledge, go seek it out, but it is possible.
And also, I'm kind of living in that at the moment myself. This past year that I just moved back to Detroit, this has been the longest time periods that I've been away from my daughter in her life. So getting adjusted to that, having the toxicity with my ex, and for me, that didn't get better until I told her that we wasn't, that like you said, I shut up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't feed into nothing. I don't respond to no text messages. I don't do anything about that. Like, I took access to myself away from her. And for a moment, because it was every time I communicated, it would make the situation worse instead of making it better. And that's part of my advice, is we got to stop feeding into it. You know what I'm saying? They know how to push our buttons, and we just got to see that. And once I saw the move, and I learned that my silence is key, like, I hadn't spoken to her in months, since probably like June. I don't think I heard her voice since June. We just text, you know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to let myself get mad. I know what buttons to push with her. She know which ones to push with me. And I just made the decision to cut it completely. And also, that goes to being in your child's life, because you can't turn my daughter against me because I'm there. Even though I'm not there, I just bought school clothes, and I call FaceTime every day. And when I talk to her, I tell her I miss her and she's pretty and all of this, you know what I'm saying? So when I did, and even though her mom didn't want that communication because she knew that was the only way she could still hurt me, was through denying my child didn't let it happen because I've been there. Let me call my daddy. And to the point to where that's where we at now. I just communicate with my child, and I just text anything to her. But my child not going to allow that, and just like I'm not going to allow myself to be separated from my child. So going through the course, but also being an active father to the child, especially as they get older. My daughter's 8. You can't turn her against me, period, because of my actions and the love that I've shown her. So it go to both. You got to be active and let your child, project your love onto your child actively. And also, we got to stop feeding into the toxicness from our other halves.
Somebody else got it?
I'm going to go on the flip side of that. Any man that's sitting next to a woman and you don't want that child's father to be in that child's life, you're not a man. Let's just keep it blank and simple. Even I have 2 stepsons, right? I wanted their father to be in their life. The right way, though. You know what I'm saying? Not trying to push up back on my wife, not being abusive to the kid. But if he was going to come in and be 100% dad, because he is the father. That's what the paperwork say. Don't say dad. It says father. He is the father. But if he was going to be 100% dad, I wouldn't have a problem with that. You know what I'm saying? I promoted that. I didn't want to come in and take all that responsibility. You got a whole father. Where he at? But if you sitting there and you saying no, that's not cool, baby. I don't want him in our life, in his life, and all that. That's dead wrong. That's that kid's blood. That's his legacy. So any man that's sitting there next to a woman, I know we're gonna put this on air. Any man that's sitting next to a woman and you are allowing that to happen, her taking the kid away, you're dead wrong.
Yeah, that was my situation too. I got too many situations, but
that's your new name, situation.
I think we got a question in the back. Go ahead.
It's not really a question, more so a comment. I've been in you guys' shoes as well. I went through a situation with my kid's mother. We divorced, and for months I didn't see my boys, and I filed paperwork. I went down to the courts. I did it the legal way. I got turned away. So I sat in silence, but in my silence, I still went up to the school because I was on the birth certificate. I volunteered. I went on field trips. I still built that relationship with my kids, and I'm still fighting, every day to be in my kids' life now. So, that's a suggestion.
I think it's also a spiritual aspect to it, Pastor. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and rulers of darkness and spiritual wickedness in high places. And so there's a prayer life that has to be associated with that. The Lord fights on our behalf. So you got to intercede. You got to lift your child up in prayer. You got to lift that counterpart in prayer, that woman, whoever the mother is, in prayer. And the heart of the king is in the hand of the Lord. So just ask the Holy Spirit to soften that person's heart.
I think also we got a hand in the back, and we got like 4 minutes. So I think also somebody bring her the mic, and you got a question. Okay, then you're going to go over there. Okay, so I think also in terms of that, we have to teach our daughters that it's not okay to X out the father. If y'all don't get along, you know what I'm saying? Like, if y'all don't get along, still allow your child's father to father their children. Because no matter what stepdaddy come in the picture, they still gonna want their biological father. I don't care how old they get. Soon as they turn 18, 19, 20, they're gonna be like, hey, well, I'm gonna try to find my biological father. And especially if you have kids by the stepfather, they're gonna feel a difference. You know what I mean? Like, I'm in the house, it seems like he treating them different than he treat me. So let me go find my father so my father can give me the special treatment that he giving his kids. But I think also we need to teach our daughters, like, stop purposely pushing, the father away from their child. If you want to be there, like, there's some deadbeat dads that don't want to be in their kid's life. That's a fact. But there's some that are fighting. And I hear the hearts of some that are fighting, and there's women out there that are like, nope, I'm not, he can't be in their life. You know what I mean? And it's just, we got to teach our daughters different. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, in reference to the last question that you asked, time will tell what no man can. And I believe in the situations where mothers are keeping the children away from the fathers or vice versa, whatever, but we're talking in reference to men. Save everything. I don't care if you went to court and, in our case, the communication was cut on the cell phone. We just could not get in touch at all. And, if you go to court, save everything that you do. If you're sending texts, save everything that you do. Save everything that you do, because at the end of the day, that child's going to get older. And if you have record of all the times that you've reached out or that you've gone to court, whatever it is, you know, you're gonna have that to be able to say, hey, I've been trying over here, regardless to what's being spoken in your ear, and be consistent with your efforts. Just like he said, I'm trying to volunteer in school and stuff like that. Just be consistent, because time will tell what no man can when that child is old enough to understand.
Amen. I think that's true, because coming from a fatherless son, when I finally reconciled with my father, it was nothing he could tell me, no excuse he could have gave me about why he wasn't in my life. You should have moved heaven and earth to be in my life. You know what I mean? So it's, you know, when you have that type of, it helps build your case, because unfortunately it's you against the mom. You know what I mean? And you have to, you know, build your case so that your kids won't automatically default to the person who raised them. You know, I'm going to default, hey, this is my mama. You know what I mean? When my father tried to say my mom did any wrong, hold on. My mama raised me, you wasn't here. So, but if you don't have that evidence, then I don't know if you've done anything.
And even in my situation, I one thing that I never do, and I'm gonna keep this short, is that never beat down the mother or the father to the child. Never. My son, when we in the car and we pray every morning, we praying for his mom. You know, we calling his mom out in prayer. When he goes over there, I'm being called something, but it ain't out in prayer. But you know, you know, but he see that, dang, you know, they grow up and they see it like, dang, dad still respects my mom. He never argues. He never raises his voice. He never, you know, he still, you know, but on the opposite side, mom. So as they get older, they begin to make things out on their own, you know, and they begin to make their own decisions. And so, you know, mine's to be 18, and I'm just doing all in 6 years. So I'm just being there and I'm pouring, and hopefully when he's 18, he still say, hey, you know, I'm rocking with my dad regardless instead of running to mom.
Amen. We got one more question, and then we got to close it out.
I think this is a good question to close on. As men, what are you guys doing to encourage other men to help the youth? Because it's obviously a lack of male presence, from the church house to the schoolhouse to the street corner. So what are you guys, as positive men that's been through things and have seen where the world is going, what are you doing to encourage other men to join with you to help our youth?
So that's why I actually started Transition 7. My business was because I wanted to help other men become authentic men, especially men of God. That way we reach back, you know. And so for me, what I'm doing now is every Thursday, you know, from 8 to 9, 7 to 9, my wife just corrected me, 7 to 9, I'm building with men. We're going out, we're fellowshipping, we're reaching out in the community, and Thursdays from 5 to 6, is that right, 2-1? Okay. And from 5 to 6, I have a youth group. So what we're doing is I'm developing the men to be, you know, to grow into authentic manhood. You know, and it's a tough group, man. I learned that it's a lot harder to unwire men than it is the youth. But but they're growing and they're reading their words, and I want to make sure that they're okay and become the men that God wants them to be, to reach back and pour into these young men properly. And so as they grow and we do these Thursdays meeting, we go out and we reach in the youth, and we just bringing other guys in and fellowshipping with them. So that's one of my missions.
I want to say this comfortably. I think every man up here has some arm of mentorship going on. So I think we all are doing our job as far as mentoring as much as we possibly can. Now, could it be stretched a little bit further? I mean, we're doing stuff like this, you know, having sessions like this, trying to give men the opportunity. We have Booker has ManHood. We have Work the Works here at the church, and we meet every month, and you wouldn't believe some of the conversations we have, you know, and I think you just have to be okay with whoever comes. You know what I mean? Sometimes we get caught up on numbers. You know what I mean? But if you can reach one person, you know what I mean, that person can tell another person, and you know what I mean, consistency is key. You want to continue to do it, whether it's 2 people coming, whether it's 10, 15, 100, you just want to be consistent, because we can honestly say that as men, we honor consistency. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you can come at me and holler at me about all these promises and things that you're going to do, but I need you to be consistent, because I've had a lot of inconsistent people in my life. You know what I mean? Like, we've had so many inconsistent people, from our fathers, you know what I mean, from relationships to jobs to career choices and all that. We're looking for somebody to be consistent and real with us. And once you show them and expose that you're real with them and you there and you care, man, I think the sky's the limit. But I think sometimes we're looking for a quick turnaround with that mentorship, or sometimes they just hard-headed. You know what I mean? It's frustrating to give people free mentorship for them not to listen to it in the first place. It is very frustrating to be like, hey, I sat down, I talked to you, I told you what to do, I told you what not to do, and you go out and do it anyway, but it's still a part of mentoring. Because even though they did it wrong, in their mind, they're like, man, he did tell me that this wasn't the path to go. You know what I mean? And some people, I'm a type of person that I don't have to learn the hard way. But some people have to hit the brick wall, pick themselves back up and be like, okay, I guess I can't go down that street. You know what I mean? So it's just being consistent, making sure that we're letting them know, hey, we're here and continuously working with people. You know, I think, too, a big thing people don't realize, and I think it's minimized, is the ministry of coaching. You know, the ministry of coaching, like coaching young boys is a big responsibility. It's a huge responsibility. And, you know, in the world and society that we live in, it's like you're fighting against so much. You know, Minister Josh Roberson was talking about, you know, spiritual warfare. Like, if they don't get any balance to that spiritual warfare, which spirit is going to win? If they don't have a mentor telling them, hey, son, like, man, it's a fight against you. It's a fight against you being a black man. It's a fight against you being a man. It's a fight against you being a father. It's a fight against you being a husband. Everything is a fight. You don't have nobody telling you that. You're just going to fall to it. So we need that consistency. So if there's no more questions, we want to close it up. You know, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being a part of our panel. I want y'all to patronize these brothers. I know, I was about to call you Minister Pope, has a book, April, all right? So I see things, I see, amen. So Minister Pope has a book, so I want you to plug your book real quick, and then we're going to go down the line.
Okay, my book is called Sitting Down is the Tallest I Ever Stood, from MOB, short for mobster, means gangster, to MOG, man of God. And yeah, so it's a memoir of my life, and yeah.
Amen. Mr. Roberson, you got anything you want to inform the people about?
No, just definitely being involved with your community, block clubs, neighborhood associations, churches. Just get connected to something. I heard someone say, cut flowers don't grow. And so when you can be beautiful for a while, but if you're not connected to something, you will die off. And so you just definitely want to be connected to something positive, like we said, mentorship, a person, organization. Do something, participate, and expose yourself.
Also, politician, get out and vote. So we want to make sure we just want to make sure we use our power to vote. And I say this, and I say this, we're laughing and joking, but people died for us to have the right. Like, we shifted the last election. Do y'all realize that? Like, we shifted the last election. And so when we were raised that, you know, our vote don't count, because we were told we were the minority, because they didn't teach us how the voting system works. So we're thinking, if I'm the minority, my little vote ain't gonna count. We shifted the last thing. So we got to get out and vote. It's very powerful. Mr. Booker?
I'm gonna plug Booker football. If you got a youth, or we do all the way up to college, if you want to come out and get your work in, you can hit me up at my email, coachb222@yahoo.com. Then also I want to plug every third Saturday at 12 noon for the men. If you want to come out, work the works, we come out here and we kick it live. Sometimes we got to open the door and run outside and say what you got to say, and then you run back in. But it's good for men to pour into other men, and sometimes when you just don't have nothing to say, it's good just to be able to listen and know that you're not by yourself. A lot of times, as men, we think that we're going through that situation by ourselves, and we're not. So we're here every third Saturday at 12. So come on by.
No, I'm good. I don't have anything to plug right now. I'm straight.
Okay, all right. You could have been like, I'm single, ready to mingle, but okay.
You just missed your opportunity.
I mean, this your opportunity. It's on video. It's gonna go live.
Give
It's
it to
gonna
him
go
again.
viral.
Give it to him again. He missed it. Give it to him again.
Wait. Since this is being taped, I'm gonna just go back. All right, Devon, what would you like to say?
Well, I'm.
Follow me on ChristiansMingle.com.
Yeah, I'm recently separated, single, handsome. Nah.
Wiley, you.
I don't really have anything to plug. I'll say that I think all of us, not just men, we have to pay a lot more attention to what we feed ourselves. Just be conscious on a daily basis on what you take in, what you put into your body, whether it's food, your entertainment sources. Turn off the TV for a second, pick up a book, and it goes a long way.
And I'm going to give a shameless plug because Bella's is where it's at. I don't care what y'all say. Y'all need to go to Bella's. Can you give them the address?
Bella's Event Center is our banquet hall located at 26609 Hoover Road in Warren, Michigan. Book us for baby showers, birthday parties, wedding receptions, what have you.
All right. So I wanted to make sure that he got that in there. Amen. We got some East Side people in the building that might want to go, and even some West Side people that want to. It's beautiful. So him and his beautiful wife, they have their establishment there together, and they're doing that full time. And I just wanted to make sure y'all let it know. Like, we got to support each other. Do y'all understand that if our black dollar circulated within our own community, we wouldn't need to always go outside of our race for us to be successful? If we're the number one consumer, that means we're making other cultures billions. I'm not gonna go down this road because it'll be another 10 minutes. But we got other cultures making fried chicken. Now that's a problem. It's a problem for me. They making bank off of fried chicken. We like, hey, give me 50 wings. Fried chicken. Anyway, but that's it. I don't want to hold us long.
What's your plug?
Mount Charity Church is a good church to come to. Good church to come to. We love God here, and we real here. We had a great men's ministry, women's ministry, outreach ministry. We are really just trying to transform lives through the Word of God. So if you know somebody that needs a church home, and we here, man, and we trying our best to change lives, man, and that's what we do. All right. So God bless you all, and God keep you is our prayer. And we just thank you for joining Man Cave Conversations. Did y'all enjoy yourself? Amen. Thank